Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet of ours. Welcome to Sustainability in Your Ear, the podcast conversation about accelerating the transition to a sustainable carbon neutral society. And I'm your host, Mitch Ratcliffe. Thanks for joining this important conversation. We're headed back into the fast-changing world of the circular economy today to explore how parents can find and buy top brands kids products, from toys and clothing to furniture and car seats, at a deep discount. This is reuse and re-commerce in action. And our guest today is Shrazy Tandon, co-founder and CEO of Kidsy. It's a dealer in new and open box children's products that's growing fast. The company reached an annual revenue run rate of $1 million only a few months after going live, according to TechCrunch. And its backers are a who's who of tech and sustainability investors. Shrazy comes from a journalism background at Bloomberg and ABC News, and her ideas were informed by her experience making a documentary about child labor. Children's products are a circular challenge since used items are sometimes banned in many different states. And as we've heard in our recent conversation with IKEA's U.S. Sustainability Manager, Marty Dietz, this can be a really complicating factor in terms of trying to set up a reuse or take-back program. Many kids' products can't be resold. Kidsy's strategy focuses on capturing unsold goods from retail, as well as opened but unused items. It's all part of a $761 billion re-commerce market, and those special requirements make this Kidsy's business a challenge. So we'll explore how Kidsy ensures products are safe and clean, as well as the challenges of competing with established e-commerce companies. You can learn more about Kidsy at kidsy.co. That's not .com, it's .co, kidsy.co. And you'll find out about its approach to the circular economy of baby and kids clothing, equipment, bedding, and more. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break with our interview. Welcome to the show, Shrazy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
How's the weather in Chicago?
It's sunny and blue skies. Chicago's really pleasant this time of year. We get a couple of months of fantastic weather and then it all goes south.
Kidsy.co. It's an interesting company, but tell me, what was the journey that led you to co-found the company, and how did your background as a journalist and documentary filmmaker help you think through what story you wanted to tell?
Right. So Kidsy was actually founded as a pain point that I was solving for myself when I became a mom. Um, I had learned about the inventory glut in the United States, as well as all the supply chain issues that existed within the retail industry during my time as a journalist, and then subsequently when I directed my feature documentary, Invisible Hands, which took a deep dive into child labor and child trafficking within the supply chains of the world's largest companies. So essentially, I had spent a lot of time having such an investigative lens into the space. And I never thought I was really going to do anything with that nugget of information beyond using it in my work as a journalist and then as a documentary filmmaker. But fast forward a few years later, when I was pregnant with my first daughter, I now have two daughters. I thought, let me be a really smart consumer. And instead of buying all these items full price, I was already getting a lot of sticker shock looking at the price tags on some of these kids' items. We're talking into the thousands and thousands of dollars across all categories. I thought, why don't I not buy this full price and actually source this open box, liquidated, and off price? And that's where I noticed the gap in the market. So I married the information and all the knowledge that I had, and decided to go ahead and fill that gap by building Kidsy.
The children's products marketplace is incredibly competitive, and there's a lot of money at stake, as you've pointed out. How does Kidsy differentiate itself in that setting?
Right. So, I do want to clarify that whilst the children's category is a highly competitive market,
Mhm.
the niche that we are focused on, which is liquidation, open box, overstock, oversupply, that market is still relatively a blue ocean, just to borrow from a well-known startup term. There's not a lot of players doing exactly what we are doing and in the business model in which we are doing it. So you will find a lot of P2P marketplaces, a
Yep.
la Poshmark, Mercari, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Nextdoor, so on and so forth. But we're not a P2P marketplace. We are a B2B2C. So what we do is on the back end, we partner with brands and retailers and other baby stores and big box companies. And on the front end, we are D2C, direct to consumer.
It's a lot of acronyms. How do you characterize the benefits of shopping kidsy to the consumer that you're ultimately selling to?
So when a consumer is shopping in the secondhand or resale space, oftentimes the options that they had were really limited to the peer-to-peer marketplace, which is you hop onto Facebook or eBay or Poshmark, and you're essentially buying from somebody else's garage, or you're shopping their basement or their closet, or in this case, their nursery items. And it is really a potluck. Sometimes the items aren't exactly as described. The optionality is extremely limited. And then because this is an individual mom or pop selling from their home, there's really no customer service or recourse if anything goes wrong. Especially if you're picking up the item in person, which is oftentimes the case for a lot of these peer-to-peer marketplaces. You are meeting in this sort of dingy parking lot or outside a restaurant or a bar and doing a trade. And sometimes even showing up at a complete stranger's doorstep in order to procure the item that you want at that deep discount. With Kidsy, we eliminate all of that and so much more. So you're shopping from a trusted brand, a trusted company. We have a robust customer service team. We have a very strict quality control process that happens at the warehouse where everything is rigorously inspected and shipped out. We also offer free shipping to all our customers, which is a huge value add because when you're buying a car seat, you don't want to pay $40, $50 to have it shipped to you. So those are really sort of the immediate benefits of shopping on Kidsy. And then I would say the other big one is because we're partnering with brands and retailers, we offer all the leading brands on Kidsy.co. So everything from your high-end $1,000 strollers down to your $10, $20 item. And so there's a lot of optionality to shop from, and parents love choice when they're shopping for their kiddos.
And on the other end of this, how do you manage partnerships with brands and retailers, as you say, who are, at the end of the day, also trying to sell their new products in the marketplace? What's the value proposition to them? And I think this is where re-commerce becomes crystal clear, but a lot of people don't see through that basic conflict between, well, I don't want to sell against myself at a lower price.
Yes, and that's a great question that I think there is a little bit of fear for brands that haven't really dabbled into this, that essentially this would be very cannibalistic of their own business model. But just to put it into perspective, so 1/3 of all shoppers in the United States actually identify themselves as secondhand shoppers. These
Mhm.
folks are bargain hunters. They always shop for a deal, and they predominantly lean in their consumer behavior and shopping choices towards buying either off price, resale, or secondhand. So, no matter what the brands or retailers do, they will never really be able to capture this 1/3 of US shoppers in this country who identify themselves as such because that's not their intrinsic consumer behavior. And that's really where we come in because that is sort of our first tier customer is the person that is already geared towards shopping because they want to be either environmentally or sustainability
Mhm.
driven, or they are economically and sort of very, conscious of the price points and sensitive towards the price points. And now what's happening over the last couple of years is that brands are sort of waking up and realizing that this is a very symbiotic relationship. And they're really leaning into the re-commerce liquidated model because no brand is going to take a customer returned item or an open box or gently used item and put it up on their platform because then that would sort of really I think degrade sort of the other brand new products that they are trying to push and sell, especially like the newer releases. And that's where we find this really beautiful symbiotic partnership where we work closely with them. And I would say the last thing that's also really pivotal is because we are a consumer facing company, because we touch that consumer directly, we're super careful about brand degradation.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure that whether you're buying that Graco stroller or Duna stroller, that you are having a fantastic experience, not just shopping on Kidsy, but also when you receive that product or that brand on your doorstep, that you absolutely love it and cherish it, and perhaps come back as a repeat purchaser for more of those brand items. And so, really protecting the brand is one of the things that the retailers, I guess, love so much about this process.
So the overstock business model at a remove from the direct competition on their own sites allows them to recover some revenue from something that went unsold while preserving their ability to do the highly differentiated buy from us on their own e-commerce site or through a traditional retailer. How did you explain that benefit to a company that didn't immediately see it?
Intrinsically, they already knew this. I
Okay.
think it was just sort of navigating, what does that look like? What does that process look like?
Mm-hmm.
And so the way we sort of warm them up or, allow them to dip their toes in the water is we often create pilot partnerships. So these are, let's just take 20 or 50 items and go through the process of what that partnership will look like. And if you're happy with the outcome and you're happy with the way in which we are handling your overstock, your open box, your customer return, let's then continue to expand that. And so that's how some of our partnerships have really grown. We've sort of started small, done a couple of SKUs or stock keeping units. There's another acronym for you,
Yeah, yeah.
and really grown from there.
Are there companies, particularly in the P2P space that you mentioned earlier, that you learned from? What were some of the insights that you took away from other forms of re-commerce that you were seeing and put a finer point on it, in the Kidsy store?
So I spent a lot of time actually buying and selling on these secondhand sites in the lead up to launching Kidsy because I really wanted to understand the journey as both a seller and then also as a buyer. And one of the biggest takeaways from that experience was it is absolutely crucial that when you're building any company and especially e-commerce, that you need to remove all the frictions and pain points in a customer's journey as much as possible to make it absolutely seamless. Our customer base is really unique in the sense that these are parents, and by definition it means they are really, really time poor and also cash strapped to some degree because now they have another count in their family to account for. And children come with all sorts of unknown price tags that you don't really realize until you become a parent, whether it's shopping for the gazillion items that they need, that they constantly outgrow, whether it's healthcare costs, medical care costs, checkups, recreational activities, hobbies, education, schooling, travel. I mean, you name it, the list is endless. And so being able to offer these price sensitive customers really deep discounts, I think, is pivotal. Making the checkout experience extremely seamless, offering free shipping, and so that they don't have to sit there and calculate the shipping costs at the end and then potentially abandon cart. Also giving them a variety of products and really strong product recommendation systems. And so if you know this customer is shopping for a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old, you're really tailoring that experience of recommendations to that age. And so the biggest lesson is, I guess, anticipate what it is that your customer is looking for and remove friction at every point in the journey.
Children's products are more heavily regulated in general, and in some states very differently. What's involved in making your re-commerce operations compliant with all of those consumer product safety laws?
Yes, another great question. So we do not sell any items that have been recalled for
Okay.
whatever reason, even if it's a temporary recall that then gets reshelved. Recalled items, and there's a list of recalled items that is readily available that our team constantly has access to. And
Mhm.
so making sure that there's no recalled items that are being sold. Another big thing is, expiration dates. People think that an expiration date is really related to particularly food items, but as you pointed out, just given the regulations, there's expiry dates on children's products too. It
Yeah.
doesn't so much exist within toys and some other durable goods, but it certainly exists within car seats and strollers and even cribs to some extent. And so constantly making sure that those manufacture dates and expiration dates are being documented by the team so that what we are selling is a product that still has a lot of life in it and is not expiring anytime soon is also really key to ensuring that we're, keeping up with all the safety standards.
Now, you did point out that parenting is a sequence of investing. Let's just put it that way as the positive way of putting it. Or you could just say it costs an awful lot of money to be a parent. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a whole series of upgrades from clothing sizes and seat sizes to different kinds of toys and everything. Have you thought about your role, Kidsy's role in the ongoing circular life that that parent might be trying to build around their child's consumption? Are you thinking about take back programs and recycling programs that might help them keep these products either in circulation in some way or that they are responsibly disposed of?
Yes, that's another great question. And something the team and I have been discussing a lot recently is building a buyback program for some of the items that do have a tremendous amount of life left in them, and ensuring that we continue to offer circularity to those products. So we are already part of the circular economy in the sense that
Mhm.
if these brands and retailers don't sell to us, then the life of that item is actually headed towards a landfill, regardless of whether or not that item is in absolute pristine condition or not. And oftentimes you will see these brand new items that are being disposed of in the landfill. Just to put it in perspective, uh, about 9 to 10 billion pounds of landfill is made up of just customer returns on a yearly basis. That's about 10,000 fully loaded Boeing 747 of trash that is new. And it's gotten so bad in recent years that America actually exports a lot of its trash to other countries for it to be destroyed and disposed of. Now, there's some retailers that try to recycle some of these items, and put that stamp on their
Mhm.
CSR report at the end of the year. But really, again, that's a very laborious and capital intensive process to break an item down for parts and pieces and recycling. Fashion gets a really bad rap. It's sort of, I guess, much more sexier news headlines to talk about Ralph Lauren burning, X amount of pounds of clothes or Louis Vuitton destroying X amounts of product so it doesn't end up in the resale market. But the reality is not just fashion, it's across all categories. I guess it's less of a sort of clickbait to read about refrigerators getting destroyed in the landfill or strollers getting destroyed in the landfill. So Kids Europe already is such a crucial part of that, circular economy where we stop that and divert that item from going to the landfill and putting it back into the hands of consumers. But yes, can we further extend that circularity? Absolutely. And that's something that we're looking at doing, in which we offer our customers a place in which they could resell. Most of our customers already resell the items they buy from
Mhm.
us.
Mhm.
Again, that's a very intrinsic parenting behavior. And they do that vis-a-vis two ways. One is they pass it down as a hand-me-down within their community, or they relist it on one of the peer-to-peer marketplaces.
I think this is a great place to take a quick commercial break. We're going to be right back. And now back to our discussion with Tracy Tanton. She's co-founder and CEO of Kidsy.co. Kidsy.co is a reseller of open and unused products for children. Tracy, you produced a documentary about child labor, and I'm wondering, is Kidsy also looking at the sourcing of the materials and the products that it sells in order to curate that kind of product out of the choice set you're making available to your customer?
Yes, that is such a great question, and it's also absolutely fully loaded. I did spend a lot of time investigating child labor within the supply chains of the largest companies, and I would say that the biggest perpetrators. There's a lot of industries that child labor touches. The New York Times actually very recently, I think it was 2 weeks ago, did a fantastic expose on this. Um, the biggest, however, perpetrators are within the agricultural fields. So it's typically food and cocoa, as well
Mhm.
as tobacco, anything that grows in the fields where it's really harder to be audited and monitored are some of the most, I guess, egregious incidences of child labor. However, that's not to say that it's not happening within the kids' industries, because a lot of these products are also ending up on factory lines in China, Vietnam, Thailand, and other Asian countries before they are exported to the United States. We are such a nascent company. We've been
Mhm.
around for a year. That to really lean into that and start incorporating those practices within our corporation, we just simply don't. And I would be completely frank and honest here, we just don't have
Yeah.
the bandwidth for it. It requires deep expertise and, to the account of partnering with the brands on ensuring there's best practices, getting their auditing reports, and potentially even one day having our own auditors visit their factories to ensure that the product is not made by child labor. Um, it's an issue that governments, corporations, and retailers have yet to solve.
Mhm.
Um, and I am not sure right now of the role that Kidsey would play in this. If we were manufacturing our own products and selling them, this would be a very different conversation because we would have full accountability and ownership of the entire manufacturing process from start to finish, whether it's, from farm to store or factory to store. But because we are not involved in the manufacturing process, it's really difficult to then insert yourself as that. Also, of a we're not the first point of touch for a product. We're not the big box stores, we're not the retailers, we're not the boutiques, we're not the brands. We're the second point of touch. We're resellers. But as we continue to grow, it is certainly, I think, very much aligned with our values, especially mine.
The interesting thing about this is it's very similar to the conversation about carbon emissions and scope one, two, and three emissions, this lack of transparency in our supply chain. But your customers, you've described two customer sets, one that are price sensitive and the other that are sustainability oriented. Is there a natural tension between those two positions that uh, would and not force you, but make it pretty easy to opt for let's just focus on low price and not tell more of the sustainability story over the long run. It's not meant to be a challenge, but it is the kind of question that everybody I think is dealing with in the business community, which is just how much do people really care about this versus getting a good deal? What are your thoughts on how sustainability oriented shopping will evolve over the course of the next decade or so?
I'm very optimistic and bullish that sustainability and best practices and being more aware of your carbon footprint is definitely going to be front of mind for a lot of consumers, particularly Gen Z, as they
Mhm.
start to acquire more purchasing power and they're now in the workforce. And then for us, start entering into parenthood. And I think a lot of the credit goes to all the environmentalists and the climate change activists that have been beating the drum about this over the last 2 decades. That this issue, compared to 20 years ago, is really front and sort of front of mind for consumers when they shop. And a lot of the data and research already shows that customers do have a bias towards supporting companies that are engaged in sustainable practices. It just so happens for us, and I guess we're particularly sort of lucky that while playing in the off price and discount space, we're able to have huge impact in the sustainability space. And oftentimes, like you rightly pointed out, those two are not always mutually exclusive. In fact, to your point, I would argue that a lot of off price discounted stores are unable to be sustainable,
Yeah.
just because of the way in which they're going about manufacturing and selling their products. Um, and there's many companies that have been in the headlines for this, whether it's Shein or Forever 21 or even H&M and Zara for many years took a beating about this in the press. Fast fashion in particular is, I would say, um, you
Deservedly so.
yeah, absolutely. Um, So, but again, we're in such a unique space in the market that by being off price, we're able to also simultaneously have a tremendous environmental impact just by diverting those goods away from the landfill and reducing the carbon emissions.
So, what facets of Kidsy's business, from sourcing and logistics to delivery and returns, are you focusing on to lower your scope 1 and 2 impacts and other environmental impacts in general? Have you got a plan for getting to a net zero operational footprint?
Yes, that is certainly in the pipeline. And I think it's also really imperative that as you play in as you play in the sustainability space and as you play in, a space that is essentially environmentally driven and impactful, that you're constantly looking at your own carbon footprint and your own carbon output. One
Mhm.
of the things that we try to do as much as possible is from a supply chain perspective, when we're getting freight from a company and the products are being shipped to us, we try to wait to consolidate that freight as much as possible
Mhm.
and get that freight to, here's another acronym for you, an FTL, which is a full truckload. And so essentially making sure that the truck that's arriving at the Kidsey warehouse has been packed to its full capacity, and therefore is much more impactful from a lowering carbon footprint. Too many times we see retailers, whether it's off price or not off price, receive multiple shipments
Yeah.
throughout the year where the truck is only a half a load or a quarter of a load. And so that's something that we do. We're happy to wait until the retailer is able to send us a full truckload. And I would say that's sort of like one of the first big things that we can immediately tackle from a logistics standpoint.
What would you say is the most unexpected lesson you've learned about being sustainable since you started Kidsy?
How easy it is, and that a lot of, I think, the misconception around sustainability and being environmentally friendly in our shopping and consumer habits,
Mhm.
there is a misnomer that it's often attached to being more expensive, and that this is going to break the bank, or this is not going to be affordable. But I think the beautiful surprise in this, in sort of building Kidsy and also looking at other companies as a benchmark who are doing this and have been doing this tremendously well, is that it is extremely affordable to do so. And you're still able to source the deals and the discounts and the savings that you are looking for while continually reducing your carbon footprint. And I think a lot of that is also credited to just the huge growth that the industry has had, where now it's not an anomaly to be a company that is engaged in best practices from the ground up, that it's starting to become the norm. And we're starting to see the pendulum shift in that direction, which makes me really happy.
Well, your growth is a testament to that. Achieving the run rate you did just of $1 million annually just 4 months after you launched is quite an accomplishment. What are your goals for Kidsy as you grow it over, say, the next 5 years?
Yes, I think the growth is obviously it's a reflection of the times that we're in and the shift in consumer behavior and spending practices. My vision for Kidsy over the next 5 years is for us to be the leading destination for customers who are shopping for kids items that are both economically conscious as well as environmentally conscious. We want to be the leader in the space. And I hope as other companies enter the off-price and re-commerce space, they look to us as the benchmark and the beacon. And we really want to set that standard.
Are there complementary categories, since you talk about other companies coming into the re-commerce resale space, that might be appropriate for Kidsy to extend into?
This is a question that, again, the team and I ask ourselves a lot is, what are the other sort of symbiotic categories that would make sense within the parenting journey? And a few of the things that we've discussed is having much more school related or
Mhm.
educational related products and categories because as every summer, usually July and August, it's back to school shopping, and I think there's a lot we can do to offer our customers within that space. And then also, I guess, from a sort of more earlier standpoint in the parenting journey, maternity products and
Mhm.
maternity wear. And so, really capturing that customer at the earliest point in her journey is another category that we've been exploring as well.
Do you have any advice for aspiring sustainability entrepreneurs, and particularly women and mothers looking to take what they're learning about being a consumer to a new level in their own lives by starting a business?
Just go for it. I think it sounds extremely philosophical and almost childlike to say that. But really, I think, one of the great quotes or mottos that I really stand by is everything you want is on the other side of fear. And I think there's so many things that we tell ourselves, whether it's as a, women or men, or it doesn't matter. This is gender neutral. When we're starting a business and venturing into unknown territory, is that all these unknowns can often be paralyzing. And I think too much analysis, there's analysis paralysis when you're about to start a new venture, and just take the first step is really what I say, because as the unknowns become knowns, you're only then able to continually tweak and pivot and modify and grow and start. And it's such a great time to start a business because now, compared to say 30, 40 years ago, a lot of businesses were just brick and mortar. So
Yeah.
unless you had space, hard space on the ground, it was really difficult to really launch anything. But today, people are growing businesses on all sorts of mediums, whether it's e-commerce, whether they're growing robust businesses on YouTube, whether they're using other platforms to launch their own businesses. I see a lot of moms and women launching businesses on even platforms such as other marketplaces and
Mm.
really growing really huge profitable companies. I think just with the advent of choice that we have today, there's a lot of avenues to really just build. So just go out there and build it.
No, it's a blue ocean. We've been kind of frightened of oceans setting sail across them several times in history, but if you do it, big things can happen. How can listeners follow the Kidsey story and get started shopping?
You can follow us on Instagram. We are at Shop Kidsy, and then on our website, www.kidsy.co. You can also sign up to our Kidsy newsletter through our website, where you will be constantly receiving updates on all the new initiatives that we're taking and the impact that we've had quarter over quarter, year over year, as well as get all the sort of insights into all the deals and discounts as well.
Well, Tracy, thank you very much for spending some time with us today.
Thanks so much. It was great to talk to you.
That was my conversation with Tracy Tandon, co-founder and CEO of Kidsy. That's a re-commerce site for children's products, and you can find out more as well as browse the deals at kidsy.co. Re-commerce is a blue ocean, not just in kids products, but across the entire spectrum, as we've heard from the founders of Alchemy, Bestock, and Wearwell, among others, as well as eBay's chief sustainability officer on our previous shows. The $761 billion in unsold products that go, many of them, to the landfill each year, represent not just an opportunity to profit, but a chance to bring better and more sustainable lifestyles to millions of homes. How many more product categories are ready for e-commerce? Hundreds, maybe more. And as Tracy related, the beautiful surprise in this day and age is the ease with which a company can start sustainably and get on the path of constant improvement toward a net zero goal so that we retire environmentally irresponsible practices across the economy. Finding the symbiotic relationships in a market that can connect shoppers to products that otherwise would be headed to landfill at the local level or the national level can reduce our collective impact. So check out Kidsy if you're a new parent and look for re-commerce alternatives whenever you're shopping. And hey, here's another choice you can make today. Please spend a moment to share this podcast or any of the more than 470 interviews that we've produced on Sustainability in your ear with your friends, your family, your coworkers, or write a review on your favorite podcast platform. It will help your neighbors find us. Folks, you're the amplifiers that can spread more ideas to create less waste. So please tell your friends, your family, everyone you meet on the street that they can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, or whatever fine purveyor of podcast goodness they prefer. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you for your support. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe. This is Sustainability in Your Ear, and we'll be back with another innovator interview soon. In the meantime, folks, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. Have a green day.